amigos, bienvenidos a Canadá Latino. Esta semana les traemos una visita a la Galería de Arte de Ontario que tuvimos sobre el arte de España, 4 siglos de arte español y unas piezas que estaban para la venta de primerísima calidad. Comenzamos nuestro programa de hoy con la primer parte de esa exhibición, donde los curadores hablan qué es lo que traen para la gente. Esto fue una invitación en los medios que luego se transformó en exhibición desde el día 8 de junio. Entre 1492 y 1898, España estableció un imperio que abarcaba vastas extensiones de las Américas y el sudeste asiático. El movimiento constante de pintores, escultores, impresores y otros artesanos dentro de estos territorios produjo una cultura visual rica y compleja en todo el imperio. Desde el comienzo, la expansión global de España se vio impulsada por el deseo de extraer recursos naturales y difundir la fe católica. Al mirar arte de las Filipinas, de América Latina y de España, podemos aprender sobre las diferentes corrientes artísticas que se presentan.
And then I walked in the cloister area, right? There's a little garden showcases objects from the Hispanic Society Museum and Library, which is one of the great collections in the world of art of the Spanish Empire. It's in New York, and it's undergoing renovation right now. The project's being renovated in part by Annabelle Seldorf, who is the design architect for our expansion, so there's kind of a nice little connection there. And there are many, many great works of art in the show, and there are the iconic works too, and it's great to see those in context with other works. There is also at the end a section on daguerreotypes from the Philippines, and I just want to call that out in particular. I'm a photo historian. I've never seen them. This is the first time I believe they're on view and so I just particularly want to thank Tony and Malaka Bihante. So thank you. She's going to be speaking a little bit here and later, but we couldn't have done it with our own expertise. We had to go out beyond. And one of the things that's nice about Adam is we have engaged a lot of members, scholars, artists, community members from different communities, from the Latinx and the Filipino communities, to help inform what is on the audio guides, to help inform kind of our understanding, because no single person and no single institution can have all the knowledge needed to successfully describe what is going on in the show.
La parte 2 de esta exhibición muestra a un curador del AGO y a una persona dedicada al arte de la comunidad filipina. Filipinas formaron parte también de ese imperio español.
I'm really so excited to welcome you to Faith and Fortune. This exhibition, like all exhibitions, has been the product of many years of work, many years of great teamwork with incredible colleagues here at the AGO and beyond, and members of the GTA community. Personally, it's a very important exhibition to me. I grew up in a mixed Puerto Rican family. I studied Spain and its empire for my entire life, always with the question sort of how does this history even lead to my own existence, my family's existence, and to how we move in the world that we live in. But throughout this project, it's also allowed me to think more broadly about how the Spanish Empire and the arrival of Columbus in the Caribbean in 1492 has really significant impact on how we think about our lives today in Canada, and how settler colonialism has its origins with the Spanish Empire. But the legacies of that project has a huge impact on anyone that lives on Turtle Island today. The histories that this show presents have very, very real impact and potential for us to consider the world that we live in and contemporary civic society in Toronto, in Canada today. The artworks in this show, which are paintings, sculptures, metalwork, textiles, decorative arts, books, very rare photographs, come from over 10 countries and represent over 400 years. But all of these are presented through the contemporary lens, asking the question, how do these histories shape, how can they shape how we live in the world today? And I'm just so excited because I think there is sometimes an anxiety about shows of historic work, that the work is frozen in time. But with the work of our team here, I hope that you'll see that this artwork is really presented in such a way that we can better understand ourselves, our neighbors, and not only today, but also think about what our future looks like. So I'd love to introduce you to Tani Pante, who will tell you a bit about her involvement as guest curator with a very rare set of early photographs from the Philippines. And after that, I'll lead you on a tour through the exhibition. Thank you.
And I'm based in Brooklyn, New York right now, but I was born and raised in Scarborough. I'm the guest curator of the collection of 15 daguerreotypes that you'll see on display today. And these photographs represent the earliest photographic images on record taken within and of the Philippines. These photographs are a specific type of photographic imagery called daguerreotypes. This was the first widely accessible photographic technology made available to the public in 1839. It was very laborious to produce and required heavy equipment and manual labor. And one thing that you'll notice is that in these images, you'll see that there aren't a lot of figures in them. And the reason for that is that it required people to hold still for 3 to 30 minutes to be registered on these images. The significance of these photographs cannot be overstated. Taken in the 1840s, these objects play an important role in the history of photographic technology and also in the history and narrative of the Philippines and Philippine people. And to be able to show these to the public for the first time and have the Philippines named as a part of this exhibition is incredibly significant. My perspective as a curator has been shaped by my experiences living and growing up in the Filipino community here in Toronto, and also by my family's migration story. Like many others, my parents migrated from Pampanga and Baguio City in the Philippines in the 1980s. My interest in these photographs comes from a place of celebration and pride for the richness of our stories as a Philippine community and Philippine Canadians, but it also comes from a place of tension and conflict. These images were captured at a time of Spanish colonial rule in the Philippines. They were taken from a European perspective for European audiences and needs. And through this exhibition, I want to question the use of this technology as a tool of colonial power, and I want to interrogate and decolonize the stories that have been authored by European perspectives about the Philippines and the Philippine people. Visual representations shape how we see the world and ourselves, and invite audiences to visit and explore these images, and I also invite the Philippine Torontonian community to reclaim these images as their own. Thank you.
La parte final que dejamos para vuestro gusto son piezas exquisitas de arte de todo tamaño, de toda forma de ser, y entre ellas se destaca el Mantón de Manila y varios cuadros muy, muy interesantes. Disfrútenlo. Jisoo nos trae nuevamente su último éxito, Humanidad. Es una joya esta canción.
Gracias a la vida, como dijo Parra, mirando al revés. Cuánto del veneno tenemos que tomarnos para reconocer. Luz del cielo, alas de mariposa en el atardecer. En tus ojos están generaciones, pero lo que falta es la
Por el cielo vi al sol, moviendo como caracol. Dulce sabor de coyol en el suelo, cambio mi suerte con trébol. La vida me puso un bemol, puros acordes menor. Lo feliz no quita el dolor, igual el odio está cerca del amor. ¿A dónde se fue el valor? Veo mucha gente con temor, rogando individualidad en vez de cultivar humanidad.
Nos despedimos del programa de hoy con las bellezas de Costa Rica. Disfrute ese turismo y nos vemos en la próxima. Muchas gracias, que lo pasen muy bien.